to stop the fascist tyranny. Organize as one. We are rising. We are rising. We are rising now in this life. From those who dare to interrupt the violence, to those who expose the truth and break the silence, warriors who work to open up the prison bars, valiant souls who stand up against the unjust wars, multitudes who defy walls along the border, masses who unify to protect our water, rebel minds who unionize for workers' rights, fearless hearts who fight to defend trans lives, those who take back their land and their health, those who seek to redistribute the wealth, youth who demand a right to education, those who reclaim political power in their nation. We cry out, say her name. We chant love, trust, hate, and we will not be erased. It's we who decide our fate. We are rising. We are rising. We are rising now. And in this life, we are rising. We are rising. We are rising now. And in this life, we are women who endured violence and degradation, slavery, trafficking, and mutilation, rape and abuse, racist discrimination, those who survived labor exploitation, colonization and gentrification, imprisonment, migration, and militarization, homophobia and transphobic aggression, violence by police, reproductive oppression. But from the pain we will open eyes, awaken hearts and awaken minds, and that demands we intensify. Strategically we are organized, together we can raise the vibration through our action and imagination, respect, trust, and communication, and love for our future generations. Intersectional, inclusive, we come. Collective power is how this is won. We keep it rising like the fire of the sun. We will rise like the sun. We will rise like the sun. 1 billion for one. 1 for a billion. A 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 billion for one. We are rising now. And in this life, we are rising. We are rising. We are rising now. And in this life, we are rising. We are
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. I'm going to wait just a few more minutes, see if a couple more people show up, and then we will get started. Have any of either of y'all seen Pray the Devil Back to Hell yet? You seen the movie? It's intense, but it's also very inspiring. So, and Franco, is my mic better, or
Oh
am I
yeah, much
still hard
better.
to hear?
You're good.
Excellent.
Good job. And I'd never heard of Pray the Devil Back to Hell before seeing the event, so it's gonna be brand new. There we go.
I'm going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully a few more people will come in. I know there's several, I think, already watching us on live stream. So just want to say hello to everyone. My name is Greta McLean, and I'm with Silent No Longer Tennessee. And I want to welcome everyone here in Zoom, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And I want to wish everyone a very happy International Women's Day. The theme of this year's Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. And we have certainly seen our share of challenges over the past year. We've seen, sadly, a rash of killings of people of color by law enforcement. We've seen a sharp rise in hate crimes across the country and, sadly, across the world as well. And of course, COVID-19 pandemic, which has disproportionately affected women, especially women of color. We've also seen increased violence, new armed conflicts across the world, such as what's happening in Myanmar now. And we've seen a dramatic rise of violence against women worldwide uh, for domestic violence and sexual violence. So there's been a whole lot going on. And we can't forget the attack on our democracy just a couple of months ago that's left our country very possibly more divided than it has been in nearly or more than half a century. So hopefully we will be able to come together and work through our differences and create some change. And as I said, the theme of this year is choose to challenge. And Silent No Longer Tennessee has decided to accept that challenge, and that will be our mantra throughout the year, because we all know that um, we can't create change. We can't be the change that we want to be in the world if we're not willing to speak up and do something. So that is what we will be challenging ourselves to do. Tonight, we're going to show a good example of speaking up and acting. It is an extended promotional video of the movie Pray the Devil Back to Hell. It's about 38 minutes, so it's cut down about half of what the original movie was. And we chose this movie because it illustrates how powerful women's voices are and how we can really accomplish anything when we choose to challenge and to act. And for those who aren't familiar with the movie, just I'm not going to bore you with a history lesson, but just a little bit about it. It talks about the Second Civil War in Liberia. And the First Civil War occurred when a gentleman named Samuel Doe successfully led a military coup in Liberia and took over the government in 1980. Two different rebel armies tried to get rid of him, and they were successful in 1997, and a man named Charles Taylor became the new president. Unfortunately, The peace didn't last long, and the Second Civil War, which again is what this movie is about, began in 1999. So we will go ahead and get that started in just a moment. Afterwards, we have our panelists, Ms. Melissa Cherry and Theda Murphy, and they're going to be discussing how we can follow the examples that these women shared and how other women have used these same tactics, and how we can incorporate them into our social justice work so that we can answer the call and choose to challenge. And I do want to say that most of the violence has been cut out, but there are a few, 2 or 3, somewhat graphic scenes or scenes that may be disturbing to small children. So if you have them in the room, you may just want to be aware of that. So let me get this movie started. And forgive me, there's always technical difficulties. It wouldn't be one of
I'm 5 months pregnant. My son is 3 and my daughter is 2. So under rains of bullets, we leave the house and we walk for like 7 hours to my parents' house. And it was hell on earth. My 3-year-old is sitting down, sweat pouring off his body. He says to me, "Mama, I wish just for a piece of donut this morning. I am so hungry." I'm sitting there and thinking, where am I going to get a piece of donut for this 3-year-old? And the anger built up again. The pain was there. And I said to him, "Ruku, I don't have a piece of donut to give." He said, "I know, but I just wish for a piece of donut." Liberia had been at war for so long that my children had been hungry and afraid their entire lives. Some say the war was about the gap between the rich and the poor. Some also say that the war was about the hatred between the different ethnic groups. The war was to control natural resources. Power, money, ethnicity, greed. But there's nothing in my mind that should make people do what they did to the children of Liberia. The war started on Christmas Eve in 1989. Started his bloody rise to power.
We have an opportunity starting from here to reconstruct the minds of our people.
That was bad. It was miserable. People, they couldn't even afford a cup of rice.
Are y'all able to hear it all, or is it it's okay?
A little
It's a
bit.
little low. Okay.
Was anybody else hearing a buzzing sound over part of the video and miss out on part of what Greta was saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep, it wouldn't be a Zoom call without glitches.
My apologies. I have a new mixer, and apparently it's not as good as the first one that I had. So we're going to try this again. I apologize, everyone.
I am 5 months pregnant. My son is 3 and my daughter is 2. So under rains of bullets, we leave the house and we walk for like 7 hours to my parents' house. And it was hell on earth. My 3-year-old is sitting down, sweat pouring off his body. He says to me, Mama, I wish just for a piece of donut this morning. I am so hungry. I'm sitting there and thinking, where am I going to get a piece of donut for this 3-year-old? And the anger built up again. The pain was there. And I said to him, Ruku, I don't have a piece of donut to give. He said, I know, but I just wish for a piece of donut. Liberia had been at war for so long that my children had been hungry and afraid their entire lives. Some say the war was about the gap between the rich and the poor. Some also say that the war was about the hatred between the different ethnic groups. The war was to control natural resources. Power, money, ethnicity, greed. But there is nothing in my mind that should make people do what they did to the children of Liberia. The war started on Christmas Eve in 1989. That was when Taylor started his bloody rise to power.
We have an opportunity starting from zero to reconstruct the minds of our people.
That was bad. It was miserable. People, they couldn't even afford a cup of rice.
Taylor had his private army, which was called the Anti-Terrorist Unit. We lived in fear. It was always like you go to bed and pray that you have something different the next day. You know, that the shooting will stop, that the killing will stop, that the hunger will stop. Saying, God, please. I had a dream, and it was like a crazy dream that someone was actually telling me to get the women of the church together to pray for peace. This is completely a terrible life to live. We are tired. We are tired. But then as I said, the dream was like more ideas kept coming. We feel it's now time to rise up and speak. But we do want to do this alone. We want to invite the other Christian churches to come and let's put our voices together. And we started the Christian Women Peace Initiative. We asking who are these women? I would say we are ordinary mother, grandmother, aunt, sister. For us, this is just the beginning.
I was moved. Then I raised my hand and then I was recognized. And then I walked out before the church. And then I said, praise the Lord. And then everybody said, amen. So I said, I have a surprise for this congregation. And I said, I'm the only Muslim in this church. I was moved and I was impressed by the Christian women. And everybody was just there. Oh, hallelujah. They praised the Lord. They were so happy that I was there. We all said in the same God. And so now for the Christian women, I want to promise you all today that I'm going to move them forward to the Muslim women. I knew my Muslim sisters, and then I knew who to contact. I wanted it to be an initiative that was going to continue. When I saw the idea to them, they were more than excited. And then they said, let's go for it. At first, it was somehow difficult. When we started, some Christians said, being a follower of Christ and going to work along with the Muslim means they were diluting their faith. But the message that we took on was, can a bullet pick and choose? Does the bullet know Christian from Muslim?
It's like the entire country poured down into Monrovia to seek refuge during the crisis.
We went looking for some of the women who had come to see how they were faring, and we met this group of people. We just broke down and cried because it hurt that there was no outlet for the Liberians. These women had seen the worst of the wars, something that I had not seen, but they still had that vibrance for life. People who have lost everything and still having hope. I think that was where I got baptized into the women's movement. Taylor could pray the devil out of hell. And we said, if this man is so religious, we need to get to that thing that he holds firmly to. So if the women started pressurizing the pastors and the bishops will pressurize the leaders. And if the women from the mosque started talking to the imams, they would pressurize the warlords also. And then I get this call from Asatu. She said, the war is closing in. The war is getting worse and worse every day. We needed to do something more forceful, more dramatic.
For us, religion is not a barrier for us.
We decided to take a protest. When we decided that this is something to do, someone said, oh, but then let's call Janet. She was working with Radio Veritas, which is the Catholic-owned radio station.
Once I do the recording, it becomes the first lead story on the news. And everyone's going to hear that.
Are you sick and tired of war? Come join a festival rally organized by women of Liberia.
It was like, listen out to what we want to do next.
This Saturday at Liberia Airfield.
We went back to the Bible. We saw what Esther did for her people. That she went inside clothes and ashes, saying, I mean it. We wore plain white clothes with the hair tied. We wore the white, saying to people we were out for peace. We are determined and nobody gonna deter us. We're gonna find a strategic point where Taylor gonna encounter us and give us some attention. And this is how we decided to sit at the fish market every day. It was the first time in our history in Liberia where Muslim women and Christian women were coming together.
And we had a big banner that said, "The women of Liberia want peace now."
Charles Taylor said, those who think they can come out in the street to embarrass themselves, come out. I'm waiting for you. I said nobody, Nobody, nobody will get into the street to embarrass my administration.
We were not afraid. My mother was like, they will beat you people, they will kill you. And we said, well, if I should get killed, just remember me that I was fighting for peace.
By the time President Taylor was about to go to work, we were over 2,500 women under the blazing hot sun.
We were lined up with our placards. I wanted peace and no more war. This is how this song came about. We want peace, no more war. Our children are dying. We want peace. We are tired suffering. We want peace. We are tired running. We want peace. And then Taylor Convoy came, and we were all there singing, shouting.
President Taylor Convoy slowed down. He didn't stop. He went home. We were so desperate for peace, we were going to have a sex strike.
And we said to the women, one way or the other, you have the power as a woman. And that power is deny the man your sex. And tell him the reason you are going to deny him. Look, if you have any power to put stop to the war, you go into it.
Men were the perpetrators of violence. So either by commission or omission, you were guilty.
Some of them who went against it came back and confessed and said, let me tell you, I had no control. This happened. We said, then pick up from that.
And their husbands were equally praying with them, because for them, the end of the war meant a beginning of enjoyment for us. Asatu was, quote unquote, our spy, because she could give us information about what was about to happen. She called me while we were at the program and said, you need to hurriedly get these women back to the camp because we have a security situation. The rebels have attacked the camp.
We decided to present a position statement to the government of Liberia, informing them to see reason to come to the peace table with the warring faction. And we said, right now, we are demanding, we are not appealing.
Women in this peace work did not want to be seen as politicians. So let's not talk about politics. Let's not talk about the practices of the government because we're prosecuted for it. Let's just stick to the word peace. We went to Parliament, presented our statement, and said we'll continue to sit in the sun and rain until we heard from the president.
And but we got in the street. The man was at the front, so she wasn't looking at the back. Everywhere we passed, there was a group of women joining the group. Plus 20, plus 50. At that point in time, we didn't care whether we had jobs or not, whether we have food or not, because if we never have peace, you won't have job. The children wouldn't have gone to school. My husband won't work. And so anybody who thought that way too would see reason to sit there.
Taylor could no longer ignore us. Finally, he decided to meet with us.
Some of the women, they was really afraid to go to the mansion and to see Taylor.
People were just edging and edging and edging, and people were feeling faint. And then we realized that it was fear of the unknown. Going to meet Taylor that day was the moment that I've lived for.
When Lima got on stage to read his statement, we were like holding hands and praying. I said, we say, Jesus gave her the strength. I said, we rebuke any evil force that will make her weak.
Lima Bowie, coordinator of the Women Peace Building Network.
We asked the Honorable President of the Senate, being a woman and being in line with our cause, to kindly present this statement to His Excellency, Dr. Charles Taylor, with this message that the women of Liberia, including the IDP, we are tired of war. We are tired running. We are tired begging for bubble. We are tired of our children being raped. We are now taking this stand to secure the future of our children because we believe as custodians of society tomorrow, our children will ask us, Mama, what was your role during the crisis? Kindly convey this to the President of Liberia. Thank you. Taylor and his people could see that popular support was on our side. For the first time, he agreed to our demands that he would go to the peace talks. Now we had to get the rebels to promise that they would also go. So 2 days later, we sent Asatu and Sugars to Sierra Leone because we heard that the rebels were meeting there.
We arranged for women to be sitting in Sierra Leone so that the rest of West Africa, the rest of the international community would know that we were serious about peace.
In the morning that they were going to meet the rebels, it was amazing. When these rebels were about to leave their hotel, you had women, Liberian and Sierra Leonean women, lining their roots, calling for peace.
Even one of them was my former schoolmate, and then he was like, what are you doing here? Don't say anything to me. And I said, you have not seen me for some time here. Are you not happy to see me? I kept reminding them, your mothers have come this far to talk to you. Your sisters have come this far. If you don't go, don't you know these people will die in Monrovia? And don't you think you will be guilty that you are also responsible for the death? Some of them were saying things like, you all have come to represent Mr. Taylor, And it was like, listen, many of these men have come from areas where you are. And they are talking about your human rights abuses as well. It's not just Mr. Taylor's human rights abuses.
The rebels finally promised the women that they would go to Ghana to the peace talks.
Our basic expectation in Accra is to engage peace talks with clean hands.
And we expect it to be successful. And he will relinquish power. He will relinquish power.
We knew we had to keep the pressure up, so we began to raise money to send few women to Ghana to mobilize refugee women living there. We got students, taxi drivers, women's organization who just came and gave 500, 200, 1,000 Liberian dollars. On a daily basis, people came and said, this is something that we should contribute to.
The women living in the refugee camp joined our delegation when we got to Ghana.
We are the conscious. Sitting out here, we are calling to the conscious to do the right thing. And the right thing now is to give the Liberian women and their children the peace that is so desperately needed.
Peace talks on Liberia get underway in the Ghanaian capital later this morning. The talks arranged by the regional group in ECOWAS are expected to go on for 2 weeks.
And then I think it was by 3 o'clock, Focus on Africa, BBC. And then it was like a breaking news alert that Liberia President Charles Taylor had been indicted for war crimes in Sierra Leone.
Some people believe that President Taylor is the problem. If President Taylor removes himself, fellow Liberians, will that bring peace? If so, I will remove myself.
There was talk between the Ghanaian government and the international community for him to be arrested there and then in Ghana.
They were all in the streets with their arms and team and said if they arrest Taylor, there will be no more Liberia. So they're going to go from house to house and kill everybody and win everything. No food, nothing was just into.
If I were to leave this country, I see disaster. I see trouble. I see murder, mayhem. I see rape. I see total destruction.
We were in Accra, really, really worried for the family members that we left back.
My son was calling me and telling me they just dug a mass grave. We put in like 100 persons. So they kept taking another one. We're getting like play by play,
We took the opinion of the women with all seriousness. I found an ally in them. We on the mediation side, we felt the women were doing a good thing, trying to make their men see reason.
We have to continuously strategize what to do, because the men, they feel the more persons you kill, the stronger you are, and the more people look up, listen to you on the peace table.
We've been talking behind the scenes to the various warlords to negotiate, okay, so yes, this is your position. What will you be comfortable with? So that when you went to talk to the other side, you would then be able to negotiate with the other side.
The women kept going from one delegate to the other, trying to influence this delegate. And the belligerents have really come to the point they have just about captured the whole of the government of Liberia. So, during the peace talks, really they were talking about power, about position, about job, and the control of the resources.
Because that was what it was all about at the end of the day. It was about jobs. I want to be the Minister of Justice. I want to be the Minister of Finance so I can steal. So are we supposed to pay you for killing us? And then one of the learned members had come to me and said, well, we're going to kill the people in Monrovia, and then we'll go back there, and we'll bring women with us, and we will replenish the population. That was foolishness, he said to me. He became Deputy Minister of Defense.
the women had said they didn't want any warlord to occupy any position of authority in a transitional government.
If you are going to form a government that is going to exclude the warring factions, that is not acceptable, you are not seeking peace. You are seeking more and more and more trouble in the nation.
We were staying over at the fish market while the peace talk was taking place. We will stay at the fish market every morning and we will stay fasting and praying. There were missiles, there were shooting, there were straight bullets. And then we continued.
Every day I will see or chop food with young boys going to fight. But at the end of the day, when they are coming by, the shop is like empty. Wounded people are inside.
We mobilized ourselves and went to the American embassy. We went picketing.
We were getting nowhere. And we were really reaching the end of the road. What can we do really to sign this peace agreement? They were still joking for more.
We have women of Liberia from all over, and right now, the women of Liberia for mass action for peace.
As I got angrier and more bitter, I realized that there was no way that I could do the work that I did. No new ideas were coming because I wasn't thinking anymore.
Is this the last chance for Liberia?
We think it is.
And a missile had landed inside the American embassy compound where many displaced Liberians were staying. I just thought of my own children and I was just raging inside. So I told Sugars, today is showdown. Send for more women. So I told the women to sit at the door and loop arms, one arm within the other. And the next thing we heard on the overhead speaker was, "Oh my God, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the peace hall has been seized by General Lima and her troops."
They really came and locked us in that nobody will come out until that peace agreement was signed, even if it means staying there for days.
And then the security guards came. Who is the leader of this group? I stood up and said, "Here am I." And they said, "You are obstructing justice." And that word, obstructing justice, was almost like when you took gas and just pour it on an open flame. I just went, wow. I said, "Obstructing justice?" They said, "Yes, and we're going to arrest you." I said, "Okay, I'm going to make it very, very easy for you to arrest me." I took off my hair tie.
It's a curse in Africa to see the naked body of your mother.
Anyway, looking at me, I said, "I'm going to strip naked."
Especially if she does it deliberately.
When I came out, she really was saying, "Look, you guys, you do this, or this is what we're going to do."
That's me. I will let it know you by people. These people come here. Everyone gave them big bed. When they came, they were all pale. No eating their push. Now they are wearing fine Ghanaian male textile. And they are passing around telling us we will kill their people. When we go back, we appropriate. They won't come out. Today they will feel the whole our people are feeling there.
One of the warlords came to the door and tried to jump over the women. And the women pushed him back, and he went back as if he was about to kick their backs.
Please, I beg, please.
And General Abu Bakr said to him, "Hey, I dare you, try it. So go back in there and sit down." They can't do this again. He said, "I said go and sit down. If you were a real man, you won't be killing your people. But because you are not a real man, that's why they will treat you like boys. Go back, and I dare anyone leave this hall until we've negotiated with these women."
I am going to have my meeting, and then I'm going to meet you in the evening at 6 o'clock. After that, then we get our next.
So we went, accompanied by the Ghanaian ambassador, accompanied by other people. And for 30 minutes, it was just like tears and tears. Finally, he said, "You have to let your women out of there." We said, "No."
We were not leaving because if we did, he would have to take all of us, and there were almost 200 of us.
But ironically, the very security that were arresting me a few minutes earlier were the same security that came and said, "You have to send some women to the window because some of the delegates are jumping out of the window." So we told some of the women, "Go and stand there." And then we said, "General, if we remove these women, we gave these guys 2 weeks or we will do it again. Here's what we want. One, the peace talk has to move on. All of them will attend sessions regularly. They have to pass by us and don't ever insult us because we're not crazy." So we're just saying to them, this peace talk has to be a real peace talk, not a circus. Afterwards, the mood of the entire peace talk changed from gay and happy to more sober and more serious. What we've done here today is to send out a signal to the world that we, the Liberian women in Ghana, at this conference, we are fed up with the war, and we are doing this to tell the world we are tired of fighting the killing of our people. We can do it again if we want to. And next time, we will be more than 1,000. There are over 25,000 women at the Buduburan refugee camp. There are over 10,000 Liberian women living in Accra. We can do it, and we'll do it again. We decided to come home in our t-shirts. And it was like hugs from people that we didn't know.
They were asking to me, "How did you manage?" So with this t-shirt, I'm very powerful.
By the time we enter our community, children will start singing, "We want peace, no more war. We want peace, so no more war." And so we just have this stream of children following us all of the time. That was the moment for us. Now what? What do we do? Do we just go back home and sit and dance and celebrate? And it was like all of us just turned to that answer, no, we have to be involved. We wanted to show members of the transitional government and the rest of the world that we were carefully watching the implementation of the peace agreement.
We have tried to get very involved in the disarmament. What we have tried to tell them was that Liberia has had more than one disarmament, which means that we have some idea about what works and what doesn't work. But we were constantly told that they were the experts.
By 2 p.m., you have over 3,000 fighters standing here with different kinds of weapons and smoking weed and doing all kinds of drugs and alcohol, and no one is doing anything. I said, Sugars, mark my word, we're headed for chaos today. Then the whole thing just erupted.
The UN didn't know what to do. Fortunately for them, the women were there.
The next morning, we issued a statement and listed all of the things that the UN had done wrong. We put statements on the radio in all of the local vernacular, calling for calm among the fighters, that the women were doing everything in their will and power to ensure that they got their benefits and that the process went the way they anticipated. In 3 or 4 days, we were able to calm the situation down.
The men have been out there, they've made all the mistakes, they've brought war, they've brought poverty, suffering, everything. And so women were determined this time to make a difference.
We believe that until we had elected democracy, Liberia would not know true peace. We decided to keep working and going to the field until that day came.
We all got involved one way or the other. We campaigned till we campaigned in a line. We campaigned till we forgot that we could even be raped.
I want to hear now, gratefully acknowledge the powerful voice of women from all walks of life, whose votes brought us to victory. They defended me. They worked with me. They prayed for me. It is the women who labored and advocated for peace throughout our region.
After 2.5 years, we officially ended the mass action campaign and left the field. But Liberians knew that if things ever got bad again, we would be back.
Yeah. She gave me life when I started. She stayed with me and never fought. She held me close when I cried, wiped the tears from my eyes. She understood my baby talk. She went down when I started to walk. And I thank God.
If we had not had different women from different walks of life banding together, we may not have been able to solve the problem.
It was so beautiful. It was the first of its kind to see Muslim women and Christian women working together. Really, the women of Liberia, I must amazed. I'm proud of them. We stood.
What we did was to make Liberians bold to step out. We stepped out first and did the unimaginable.
I apologize for the sound. Again, I have a new mixture, so I'm sorry about that. Um, I hope y'all could hear it and enjoyed it. Good. Um, it's pretty profound, in at least in my opinion. It is very profound. So, I want to first. I want to pose a couple of questions for people to think about, and you don't have to answer them publicly if you do not want. But I just want to ask them and to help jumpstart our thinking process a little bit. And if you do want to answer, then feel free to either post it in the chat or here in a little bit. You can, we can all discuss them. The first question, just to think about, and I'll give everybody a couple minutes just to mull it over, and I'll put the questions in chat as well. But first thing is why the women were so effective in bringing change or ending the war. What made them so effective, and what was the source of their power? So I just want you to think about those two questions for a little bit. And like I said, if you want, you can post. If you don't, that's all right as well. However you want to do it. But we will come back to those here in a little bit. But now I am very pleased to have two wonderful panelists who I admire very, very much, and who in their own right have created some very amazing things here in Nashville. They weren't necessarily dodging bullets or hand grenades or missiles, not actual, but they they were dodging a lot of obstruction and other things going on in their work. So I'm very proud to start with Melissa Cherry. She is a very experienced community organizer and activist here in Nashville. She is an original member of Community Oversight Now, and she tirelessly, along with many, many others, fought for the creation of the Nashville Community Oversight Board. And when she isn't quite literally fighting City Hall, she serves as a mentor to others trying to find their voice and take action against injustice. And she's also been a strong advocate of Silent No Longer, and helped us amplify the voices of the MMPD victims. So we're very happy to have her today, along with Miss Theda Murphy, who is equally amazing. She is a founding member of Justice for Jacquees and an original member of the Community Oversight Now Coalition. And as a community organizer, she has been on the front lines of the battle against systemic racism by law enforcement and the entire criminal justice system, honestly. And she's also been very instrumental in getting Nashville to end its contract with the for-profit prison company Core Civic. So both of these women have a lot of experience with coalition building and direct action and strategic planning. So that is why I'm so happy to have them here today, because a lot of what we saw in that movie was obviously building coalition, strategizing, and then implementing the direct action. So I'm going to ask a couple questions of these ladies, and I'm going to start with you, Theda. We saw how the women built coalition between both the Christian women and the Muslim women, something that they admitted had never happened before, and also built it with the women in the refugee camps. So how have you been able to help build coalition and bring in organizations that may not have the same initial goals, but help people see how we're all basically, it's all intertwined, and how we can all benefit from us, in any points that you can give us as far as as what we can do as activists, whether experienced or not, would be greatly appreciated.
Hey, good evening, everybody. What I would say about building coalition among people who don't initially see things the same way is that you do have to find a point of agreement. And if you can find a point of agreement, and if you can agree upon an end goal, and usually coalitions work best if there is a really solid, concrete end goal in mind. If y'all can agree on that, then that's the beginning of a strong coalition. You also have to have a commitment to each other. You know, be very honest about the things that you do disagree about, and you know, talk about openly with each other about those disagreements, because you know that as you are pushing forward to this, those are the points at which your opposition is going to try to draw those wedges between you. So you have to have open communication and a commitment to not allow that type of division to pull you apart. And the other thing that you have to understand is that it doesn't take a lot of people initially to make change. You have to be, as those women were, extremely persistent in the face of anything that comes to throw you off, or any losses that you have, because initially you're going to have losses. They're going to push back. The people in power are not going to give way easily. So you just have to stand firm in the face of those losses. So if you have people who are committed to working with each other, they have a shared end goal, and they agree to commit to stay together in spite of the opposition, then you have a coalition that will actually be effective.
Melissa, what in your experience have you seen works for you and for your organizations? And again, any tips that you can give would greatly be appreciated.
Thank you. I just want to second everything that Theda said. And her comments match my notes pretty exactly, to be honest. But I think also, you know, that what you mentioned at the very beginning, this understanding that our fates are intertwined, I think is the underpinning of any ability to work in coalition, because it allows us to push through the things that Theda mentioned about what we might not agree on as far as the steps along the way or the eventualities that might come of it. Allows us to have a foundation that understands that liberation is collective and that it's something that benefits all of us. And that's what gives you the perseverance, right, to see through what other people might find as failures and instead see opportunities. We know that the sources of oppression in our world are extremely malleable. You know, they adapt to change well, and a coalition must be able to do the same thing. And so I think that one of the things that has brought success to the campaigns that I've seen and been involved with is this ability to kind of flesh out eventualities, kind of an if-then exercise that allows us to see obstacles not so much as the end of the road, but an opportunity to shift and adjust our approaches. And that leads into this idea that Theda also mentioned, like the myriad tactics or the diversity of approaches that might come in and present opportunities along the path of any particular campaign. And so all of those things, you know, again, kind of intertwine in this ability to understand that the intersections of our work meet at this particular place. And it's from that place which all of our decisions are made, because that protects you from making decisions out of a sense of urgency rather than a sense of preparedness, with that security that it is still in the same lane, like that we are still on the same page, because we've had this capacity to understand the various eventualities that might come out of any action that we take. So I'll stop there. I think that's a good start for our conversation. You're muted.
How do you go about, this isn't an initial question that I had, but in listening to y'all, how do you go about thinking about or selecting organizations that you want to try to partner with and build coalition? And are there particular dynamics or special populations that you look for so that you can have more diverse? Or is it basically just kind of your process for how you decide who you want to bring into coalition? And either one of y'all, whoever wants to start first is fine.
Okay, well, for us, it's like when you're doing your work, and who's there also doing that work? Every time you're doing something, they're also there. So this is like, well, since we're both doing this, we should work together, because whatever work we're doing, you're never doing it alone. There's usually somebody else there. And so when you see them and they are out there working with you, those are your natural partners.
I really like that answer. I mean, because that's really what it boils down to be honest. Like, who is going to show up, right? Part of any organizing effort is bodies. Like that initial question, their power came in numbers, right? To dig a little bit deeper, because I'd thought about this in a different context recently. I think one thing that is very important in identifying organizations that will work well in coalition is amplifying lived experience as expertise. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's something that came up in this video. They said very, very succinctly, like, your lived experience is your professionalism. Like, that's where your expertise comes from, is from your lived experience. And they were surrounded by all these people saying, well, you don't know this, you don't understand this or that. And experience is expertise. And like, an organization that understands that is one step closer to providing any kind of solution. And then in the same vein that Theda mentioned of like who's actually showing up and who's doing that work, is organizations that avoid charismatic leadership to instead democratized leadership, where you don't see one figurehead in this space all the time, but you see a diversity of people that are in this work together, walking this path together, rather than following one particular person. So those are just the two things that came to mind while Theda was talking.
And do you think that works well with the diversity that you're talking about, because it reaches different populations and helps bring in new support, new voices? The diversity helps expand the coalition and bring in new blood and new life. The other question that I have, that I actually officially have for y'all, let's see, is when planning strategy for a direct action, whatever type of direct action it is, whether it's social media campaign, whether it's op-eds, whether it's actually boots on the ground at a rally or a march or something like that. What are some of the things that we should think about as far as how to strategize? And for those who aren't familiar with strategic planning, can you explain? And I know there are some basics, but everybody kind of has their own way of doing it. Can you explain your process? And Melissa, I'll start with you this time.
Sure. And to follow up on your statement as well about the diversity bringing in, it definitely is a way to bring in more perspectives. And again, when you're coming from this place of understanding that our fates are intertwined and that diversity of perspective actually strengthens your ability to discuss these matters with other people, right? Because you will be able to understand and empathize with perspectives that might not be 100% aligned with yours, but be able to identify that overlap. And the other thing that having a diverse coalition allows it is it's less easy to discredit you. I think that what we talked about a lot during the oversight campaign is that, you know, there's a diversity of reasons why someone might not respect your opinion. And sometimes that happens like as soon as they hear your voice or see your face, and it might come later when they hear particular words that you use. But when you have a diversity of people in a coalition, there's always going to be someone that person feels like they need to listen to, right? Or that they need to respect their opinion for some reason. And so that, I think, is another reason to look beyond what you might presume would be in your camp of planning. But for the question about strategic planning, I think that the first thing that comes to mind is understanding the landscape. Like Theda mentioned, anytime that there's an issue that bothers you or that motivates you, there is already someone doing that work, right? And understanding who those people are, who are working for those reasons, who's working against it. And like we mentioned in the very beginning, where does the power in those places come from is a very big part of having an actual strategic plan, because you'll be less surprised by the things that come along and more prepared to navigate the current landscape there. And I think I mentioned earlier as well, this idea that you have one particular goal in mind, and that there are myriad eventualities that could come along the way to get to that particular goal. It prepares you better, again, to make decisions in an urgent situation. It prepares you better to be less hopeless when something doesn't work out the way that you expected it to, and more creative, imaginative. It allows that imaginative capacity to bend and shift as your campaign results might fall either way. And that again comes back into acknowledging the diversity of tactics that might be necessary. So just making that space to flesh out what the landscape looks like and what the potential pitfalls or advancements could be prepares you much better to have the perseverance that we watched in that film. You know, not accepting anything other than what your actual goal is, right? Because there will be things along the way, no matter what your campaign is, there will be people trying to short that, right? And find out what is the least that you will accept. And so when you have a very clear-cut goal and you understand what things might be offered to you in the meantime as a replacement for that goal, your whole team is more able to persevere along the way.
So yeah, oh yes, Melissa, there's nothing like a good landscape analysis to get you started so that you know who you're dealing with and what they're going to say and what they're going to get an idea of what they're going to do. Nothing replaces a good landscape analysis. And yes, I agree, you have to have a clear goal. You have to always know what your end result is going to be, so that as you need to change your tactics, you can change them, and every action that you plan is in service to that ultimate end goal. A lot of people, a lot of organizers get all caught up in planning actions, and they do not attach, those actions are the end goal in themselves. And that's not effective. You have to have, we have to understand that an action is just a tactic. It is not an end goal. The end goal is a change you want to get. And so don't get caught up in planning actions as ends in them and ends in themselves, and lose sight of whatever goal you're trying to reach, because you get caught up in the sexiness of planning an action. Yeah, and make sure that whatever action you're doing is strategically timed, because there's a time when you need to put pressure on people, and as you were talking about diversity of tactics, Melissa, there are many ways that you could put pressure on people, and so you have to make sure that you don't get like one idea in your head about this is the only way that we can do this, because there's always another way. But that also goes back with having a diversity of people sitting around the table planning. They bring different ideas, so we can get caught up if we are in our groups. We get caught up in our own ideas of how to do things. You bring other people in, and they're bringing in fresh ideas and new ideas about how to do things. So that is always very important.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get stale. And when you get stale, then people stop listening and stop wanting to participate. So, yes, I agree 1,000% that the more opinions you get, and how important it is to put egos aside. You may think that you have the best plan of all plans ever planned, and everybody else around the table is kind of like, yeah, but nice about it, but still saying, not so much. And we have to remember that the end goal is not us, it's the justice that we're trying to achieve. And we may be trying to achieve that partially for us, but there is a whole community and lot of other people out there who we are working hard for, and they have to come first, not our egos. So, and sometimes that's hard. Do y'all ever use the SWOT model when planning your? Oh, okay. Does everybody know what SWOT is? If not, I'm happy to explain. Okay. SWOT is actually, or do either one of you ladies, do one of our experts want to explain it, or I can? Either way, it doesn't matter. Okay, go for it. SWOT is just a term used for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's just before you decide on any type of action, it's how to actually prepare the strategy for it. And the strengths is, what does the organization or the group, what do they do well? What type of resources are available to them? Do they have lots of volunteers who can help amplify social media, or make phone calls, or write op-eds, or go to a direct, boots on the ground action? Do you have a lot of good writers, a lot of good comms, strong comms crew? And then you look at weaknesses. like maybe you don't have a communications team or somebody that's good at, if you're trying to use social media. And I'm using that as an example because that seems to be something that is so prevalent nowadays. I mean, who isn't on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook? At least one or two of those things now. So, if you don't have somebody, how do you fix that? Where can you go to help get the resources you need and to make those weaknesses now a strength? Opportunities can be something like, you learn of a new organization or a new group who is interested in the same thing that you're fighting against. So, especially if they're just starting up, try to, not assimilate them necessarily into your group, but invite them to collaborate with you, and build coalition. And the threats can be things like physical threats. If you are doing a direct action, can there be counter protesters? Do you have people, a security team or street medics just in case, somebody is hurt, something like that? But it can also be things like, you don't have a lot of people, or you are new to social justice issues, and you don't have the skills or the experience in planning direct action. That can be a weakness, but it also can be a threat because it can hamper what you're trying to achieve. So those are just things that as a group we all need to do before we try to plan everything. We're going to miss things, and things are going to come up that we don't think about. But the better we've planned and strategized beforehand, the more likely we're going to succeed. Do you ladies have anything to add that maybe I'd missed? Okay. Does anybody here in Zoom have any questions that you would like to ask our panelist? Please go ahead and unmute and have at it.
I don't have a question so much as just thank you so much for being here, panelists. Miss No Exceptions, Miss Cherry. I appreciate it very much. And of course, thank you, Greta, for hosting this. The video was wonderful. I learned so much. Thank you, Franco, for being here. And then I wanted to just kind of reiterate all the things that we were talking about, and to answer your original question, Greta, everything that you all said was exactly what I wrote down as far as what we learned from the women in this video, which is they never gave up. They persisted even through bullets. That's amazing. And I've seen in Nashville some very strong women never giving up. And their demands were very clear. And I noted that I wrote down that they had demands of, don't insult us. How easy is that? Please don't insult us and let us in. And I thought about that listening to George Floyd's trial today and how that is affecting protesters. And I noted what was kind of echoed back about working together in the video. She said that there's just different women from different walks of life banding together to solve these problems. And that to me is very powerful. And I see a lot of that here in Nashville. And then it's not just women's rights, it's humans' rights, it's all of our rights. And to be able to use common ground, as I heard echoed back from you panelists, about how we can relate to and use our expertise to talk to folks who maybe we don't see eye to eye with. But basically, yeah, just thanks for being here, and I'm just gonna stop talking now.
Touching on what you said, Misty, reminds me of something that I've learned in several of my communications classes, is even if we're from different walks of life, and even if we have different political ideologies or whatever, different quote priorities as far as, you know, what we consider justice. Uh, there's still some basic essentials where we can still meet people where they are. Um, and there's an old saying, um, my feelings don't care about your facts. And it's true. You know, if somebody has their mind set on something, you can spew statistics and facts at them all day long, and it's very possibly not going to change their mind. But if you say something like, especially if it involves children, you can get them like these women did, talking about their children and how they got, you know, other mothers involved. Is, you know, our children are dying, and they, you know, some of them are so, you know, they've never known peace. When you put it to that type, make an emotional connection, whether it's, you know, losing a family member to health issues, or, you know, the safety of a child, or, you know, housing insecurity, whatever it is, that helps to bridge the gap and get a conversation going where you might not have been able to do if you were just trying to, you know, talk facts, because a lot of times people are going to tune out. I don't know whether any of you have experienced that, but I know I learned that very quickly.
Well, that's why it's so important to involve people who are actually affected by the issue. And you know, those people, you know, you were saying it earlier, they have the expertise of their lived experience. And that is an authority that nobody can deny. I mean, you can try to push back against it, but their experience is their experience. And ultimately, that's where, when we're trying to make change, that's where the power comes from lifting up the stories and the experiences of the people who are impacted. Yeah.
And that gets back to the saying, you can't help me without me. You have to include, you have to be inclusive. So thank you. Yes, exactly, Theta. Yes, Franco, please.
Hey, so one thing that I got from watching the movie was how I don't think it could have possibly happened if it wasn't for neutral ground that they could go to. That was such a huge thing, and it was amazing that those women were able to get that to happen. And once they were all in the neutral ground, suddenly there's a level playing field. People are humans again, and they're forced to talk to each other as humans on the same level. Earlier, I attended the International Women's Day tea that Thistle Farms put on. And did any of you guys watch that? No.
Unfortunately, I didn't have an opportunity. I had 2 other events going.
It's still up on YouTube, and I can drop a link,
Yes, great.
including the chat that's on the side. So one of the biggest takeaways from that was that in order to try to reach out to people that have opposing viewpoints to us, we need to establish that humanity between us. And one of the best ways to do it is through something that is a gentle ritual, such as tea. Reclaiming the power of communion with a lowercase c. We are humans breaking bread together. And at one point, the Reverend Becca Stevens said, okay, I want you guys to think about who would you want to invite to tea with you if you could invite anybody in the world. And there's many people that mentioned things like my dead grandmother, or my friend who I haven't talked to in a long time, or such and such. And there's a few people that put in the comments the names of people that were diametrically opposed to just about everything that we view in terms of human rights and such. And the idea is, if you can get them on neutral ground and connect, then maybe we can find a true connection and go forward with that.
Yes.
My other thought was that in the case of the movie with the Civil War there, they talked about how there started out as a Christian movement with that one Muslim person, representative, who was met with resistance, but it's like, we are here with you. And it became a holistic thing, with seeing as how the country is made up with mostly Christians and Muslims. Here in our pluralistic society, we have the Hindus, atheists, agnostics, wide range of others, and they made sure with the internet, the T thing, to be very inclusive with their language. So somebody who was atheist, Jewish, Hindu would be watching, and we were all one, and that made me very, very happy.
That's an excellent point, because a lot of the social justice or organizations, activist organizations that I work with, are faith-based, and then there are a lot that aren't as well. So I think it's important to be inclusive. And one thing that I try to do anytime, if there's an event and we're going to have any type of prayer or meditation, is be inclusive. Whether we say God, Yahweh, Allah, Creator, Deity, Mother, whatever, that it's, in some cases it's all the same God, and in some cases, it may not be, but we have to be respectful of our beliefs, because we want, or of others' beliefs, because we want them to be respectful of ours. And the whole point of faith is believing in something not yet proven. So, I believe something, but I can't say 100% I'm right. So how can I criticize someone else for believing what they believe? So that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Franco. Anyone else?
Let me jump in here real quick. I wanted to kind of bounce off of that and bring it back to making clear demands, because I think one of the things that hit me most watching this movie was when the children were singing, no war, no more war, peace. And that's not only that their demands come so clear that even children can understand it, but it reminded us, why it is that we're doing it to begin with. No more children dying type thing. So just wanted to say that.
If no one else has any other questions, let me check Facebook. I don't think we've had any come in. Oh, if nobody has any questions, is there any final words either of our panelists or any of our attendees would like to say? Nope.
Yeah, I want to thank y'all for inviting me and for being a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing. It's our pleasure to have you.
Very much the same. Grateful to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to say real quick one more time, thank you again, panelists, and thank you, Greta. If y'all notice, Greta, in your background, it looks like you have a halo around your head. I love that. Yes, I love it. And also, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome. And then also, let's not forget, one of the most important things that I learned, that when confronted with authority, we could just start stripping. We just get naked. That's what, just kidding. But I thought that was awesome how that was what she was doing.
It could,
that
could work.
That's a cultural thing.
Yeah, that's part of
strong there.
Right there. Understand the landscape.
Yeah,
understand your landscape, because that might not work here.
Yeah, maybe not. I'm going to put some, and then I'll also email all this to everyone who attended. These are some additional resources if people would like to learn more about the movie. And then I also have a link if anybody's wanting to watch the full movie with better sound than I had. I'm happy to send that. Just let me know. But here's some, if anybody's wanting to do a movie night, you know, if they have groups, or I know a lot of it's virtual, but a book club or something, and somebody wants to read the book, there's information for discussions on, you know, if you're wanting to talk about it with your organization, with your group, a book club, something like that. And then there's also a very interesting interview with Lema, who is just an absolute amazing woman. I would dearly love to meet her at some point. And then there's also a feedback survey, if y'all wouldn't mind. I know there were glitches in audio. I mean, I know some of the issues, but just it's anonymous, so you can be brutally honest and let us know what we did right, what we didn't. I apologize. I had somebody who was going to do tech, who ended up couldn't do it, so trying to juggle all of it, I did not do the best job, and my apologies to everyone watching on Facebook and YouTube, and to all of you here with me in Zoom. I apologize for the glitches. So I know things happen, but I try to make things as perfect as possible, and sometimes that makes me mess up. Well, thank you. I'm sorry.
There's no such thing as perfection.
No, you are absolutely right. Um, and I'm learning that more and more each day. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for everyone that watched. If you have any questions or anything, please let us know. Our email address is silentnolongertn, all one word, at gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook at silentnolongertn. Thanks again, everyone. I hope that you have a wonderful evening. Any of you ladies want to give a plug for your organizations in case anybody is interested in information, please feel free.
No Exceptions Prison Collective. You can follow us on all social media at No Exceptions TN.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope that you have a good evening. Bye-bye.